From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Alexis Leal. Cronkite News is dedicated to covering public policy, as well as the safety and protection of all Arizonans. Tonight, some of our top coverage on the government and justice beat.
The city of Eloy ended its role in an unusual contract that allowed ICE to run the South Texas Family Residential Center, the largest detention center in the U.S. Reporter Micah Bledsoe explains what happened and shares one detainee's story.
In 2014, there was a surge of families crossing the southwest border. The city of Eloy and Immigration Customs Enforcement amended an existing contract that allowed ICE to establish the South Texas Family Residential Center. The Department of Homeland Security reported ICE improperly modified this existing agreement with Eloy to establish the Texas Detention Center. The report gave recommendations and stated ICE made Eloy an unnecessary middleman. At the end of September, the city of Eloy canceled that part of the contract at ICE's request. In a statement, ICE spokesperson Paige D. Hughes explained that portion of the agreement with Eloy was ended and a new agreement negotiated with Dilley, Texas.
CoreCivic is a good corporate citizen in the community. We work well with them on a number of projects, and ICE felt it was in the best interest of us ending the contracts.
CoreCivic, formerly known as CCA, owns and manages private prisons, including the detention centers in Eloy and Dilley, Texas. While complaints against the operation of the facility didn't factor into ICE's decision to amend the agreement, according to the Government Accountability Office, in 2013, immigration prisons and jails failed to report 40% of sexual abuse allegations to ICE headquarters. Greta Soto Moreno, a transgender former Eloy detainee, says she was abused while detained at the Eloy Detention Center in 2013 after fleeing Mexico.
After my 300, 400, and 500 days, I was no idea what's going on. What should I do? I was tempted to cut off my hair. I was tempted to leave my facial hair. I was tempted to kill myself several times.
Soto Moreno says she was detained for 900 days. While detained, she says she was sexually abused by one of the detention officers, and when she reported it, she was not believed.
They say, no, this is our best officer here in this facility. Can you imagine the best officer being the best one from being accused to touch people improperly? How the rest could be?
We reached out to CoreCivic for a response. Here's part of the statement from Amanda Gilchrist, the Director of Public Affairs. We're committed, as we have been for 3 decades, to creating a safe environment for the individuals ICE entrusts to our care and to following all federal guidelines on the appropriate accommodation of transgender detainees. Our ICE contracted facilities are contractually required and held accountable to federal performance-based national detention standards, which include guidelines for the safe and appropriate accommodation of transgender detainees. To ensure compliance and accountability, ICE maintains full-time, on-site staff who monitor conditions and contractual performance. After multiple denied petitions to be removed from the detention center in Eloy, Soto Moreno says she tried to kill herself.
The reason that I've been removed from Arizona is because I cut off my testicles.
Soto Moreno was moved to the Santa Ana City Jail in California, but she believes the city of Eloy has a responsibility in making sure conditions are not overlooked. City manager Harvey Kraus says the city does not receive reports on the center's operation.
They release of any liability or any operational responsibilities of either the Eloy Detention Center or the Dilley facility.
Gilchrist's statement goes on to say, "We are proud of the quality of care we provide and will continue our long-standing commitment to ensure the safety and dignity of every individual in our facilities." Reporting in Eloy, Micah Bledsoe, Cronkite News.
CoreCivic also says all detention officers are required to complete more than 100 hours of training, which includes specific emphasis on a zero-tolerance policy regarding sexual abuse and harassment.
The man accused of shooting and killing 11 people in a Pittsburgh synagogue on Saturday appeared in court for the first time today. 46-year-old Robert Bowers is facing 29 federal charges after he was accused of opening fire at the Tree of Life synagogue during a worship service. The victims were remembered at vigils across the country today, with thousands of people gathering to pay their respects on Capitol Hill. President Donald Trump is scheduled to visit the city of Pittsburgh to address the attack tomorrow. Meanwhile, the rabbi of the synagogue says they will recover.
We are a tree of life, and as I've said before to many, you can cut off some branches from our tree, but Tree of Life has been in Pittsburgh for 154 years. We're not going anywhere. We will rebuild, and we will be back stronger and better than ever. I will not let hate close down my building.
The Islamic Center of Pittsburgh has donated $70,000 to the funerals of the victims. Funerals for the 11 lives lost begin tomorrow, but some families of the victims want to wait for the full investigation before burying their loved ones.
Many parts of Arizona's Jewish community are paying attention to safety and security now more than ever. Cronkite News reporter Abdel Jimenez spoke with Jewish community leaders today about the after effects of this attack.
Rabbi Levi Levertov from the Chabad Lubavitch Center in Phoenix made it clear today that the safety and security of their community is top priority.
For our synagogue, basically, what we have done is we've, of course, reviewed our current security processes. We've also decided to figure out more ways to make sure that our building remains welcoming, but as well very secure. And to do that, that takes a number of, I'm going to say, partnering with the number of members that are here, talk to them what they feel is needed, of course speak with the local law enforcement.
Those relationships are crucial, especially in light of Saturday's shooting inside the Tree of Life Center in Pittsburgh. In Phoenix, advocacy groups like the Anti-Defamation League say their work to combat hate is even more needed.
We will continue doing the work that we do in the community of fighting hate, shining the light on extremists, and speaking up and standing up for vulnerable and marginalized communities.
While the massacre still has many people in shock and grieving, some students at Arizona State University are looking for ways to heal. The Alpha Epsilon Pi, a Jewish fraternity, is planning a vigil for tonight.
You can't appreciate something if you don't understand it. And there's too much hate in the world today, and there's too much hate amongst people in day-to-day life. And understanding where people are coming from and how people feel is a very powerful thing.
For Rabbi Levertov, Saturday's shooting should serve as a lesson not of fear, but of perseverance.
If somebody will not go to synagogue or will not go to church because of this, then they died in vain. You know, so the real thing is stand up, be proud of who you are, be proud of your religion, and show up.
Another vigil involving several Jewish temples and organizations is set for 7 tonight at Temple Beth Israel in Scottsdale. Cronkite News will be there, and we will have that story for you tomorrow.
As the final 12,000 ballots in Arizona's midterm election are processed today, we're learning more about how statewide results broke records and made history. Reporter Gabriela Vaquero was at the Morrison Institute's annual State of Our State conference, where experts shared their perspectives on this year's voter turnout.
The question of the day was, what do these results mean? A panel consisting of experts shared their perspectives as to where Arizona is headed politically. Experts say a major takeaway from midterm election results is that people didn't just vote all for one party. They voted according to candidate.
So many people, especially independents, chose Ms. Sinema as their top of the ticket and then reverted to Ms. Reducey and then began a series of ticket splitting from there.
Panelist Neil Giuliano says the campaigns played an important role in the results this year.
We saw the people who won made some very key decisions within the campaign timeframe that mattered to the voters that I identify as those thoughtful in the margin voters. That margin is a group of very thoughtful voters.
While the midterm election did break records, there is still a focus on the people who aren't even registered to vote. Voter turnout is higher in states with the same-day registration, according to the Morrison Institute. Giuliano says it would be unlikely that Arizona would change the voter registration process anytime soon.
Being politically realistic, voter registration reform issues don't happen very often in red states.
Archer says the state needs to tackle the smaller changes first.
There's a lot of people that do not vote in a specific election simply because they forgot to check a box.
Archer says most people register through Service Arizona when they get their driver's license, but when they move, they forget to check the box that updates their voter registration.
That's a small and more achievable thing at this point, where it's simply a procedural issue that could be corrected.
One of the biggest questions for the panel was what voter turnout results could mean for future elections. The panelists explained that there is no way to predict future elections. However, they have noticed voters turn out if they are more passionate about the issues on the ballot. In the broadcast center, Gabriela Becerra, Cronkite News.
Amid record-breaking voter turnout, there were reports of long lines and broken machines, but most would agree that we saw improvement at the polls from the August primaries. Sammy Gieber spoke to Maricopa County Recorder Adrian Fontes on how the day went.
I also spoke to a voting rights advocate who said that the state needs to invest more in these elections. Adrian Fontes said that it's all about allocating the budget to make the process more efficient. Lines and broken machines.
I don't know what the problem is. Nothing's being explained, so just kind of waiting.
Problems at the polls cause frustration for those wanting to cast in their ballot Tuesday. And the Arizona director for All Voting is Local says that frustration can lead to fatigued voters.
And sometimes people leave the polling place. People have to get to work. People can't wait for an hour or 2 hours. And so it's incumbent upon us to create a system where that isn't required.
Lines on Tuesday were large, but Gulata believes the budget spent for voting day was not.
Total amount of money that was spent yesterday by the campaigns, by the PACs, by all of the people who spent money on this election, and you look at how much we spent on election administration, it's just a tiny little drop in the bucket.
Maricopa County Recorder Adrian Fontes said the Maricopa County election budget was more than $20 million for midterms.
What I'd like to do is see that go further. I'd like to see that help to improve the voter experience. How much money you have versus how you spend the money you have really is a very important part of the equation as you make the decisions moving forward.
And both Gulata and Fontes agree that Tuesday was a step up from what we saw in the primaries.
Yeah, I'm giving us a grade of A-, which means it went pretty darn well, but there's always room for improvement.
I think we did a better job this time. Not perfect, but I think we did a better job.
But the would-be voters who couldn't wait for fixes say Arizona has a way to go when it comes to the poll. Fontes said that they are currently looking at ways to make sure polling places in the general election in 2020 will see improvements.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NPR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
Who you vote for can remain a secret, but your voting record cannot, and that public information is leading to a wave of get-out-the-vote mailings, and even some new apps that allow you to track the voting habits of your friends, family, and even your neighbors. Cronkite News reporter Tanaya Williamson has the details.
Many people don't realize that records with a person's voting history, not who they vote for, but whether they voted, are public record, and so are mail-in ballot requests. Campaigns get and use that data to target frequent voters, but apps like Vote With Me can scan your phone contacts and urge you to text your friends and family if they haven't voted in the last few elections.
So originally, I don't see a problem with these voter report cards, but I think that has to do with the fact that I vote.
So that information is floating around on the different applications, and so this just makes it accessible to everybody that they could use that information and ask their friends. So it brings it kind of down to the ground.
The new app, Vote With Me, is sponsored by a series of mostly Democratic voter advocacy groups. It claims to help you identify your friends who need a little extra encouragement to get to the polls by checking out their record and sending pre-written texts. But the effort isn't only online. Mailers from an organization called the Voter Participation Center go out to homes across the valley. It can identify your neighbors who haven't voted consistently.
Like on an app, you would know, who your friend was, but this was going out kind of in an unsafe way. I would feel unsafe if I had that at my door.
But where some see fear, others see a source of pride.
So, when I get these report cards, it just reaffirms that I'm doing my part and I'm trying to be heard and, doing what I can do to make a difference in my area.
Both the app and the mailers do contain disclaimers that their databases may contain errors or be outdated. And we here in the Cronkite newsroom have checked a few of those records where that seems to be the case. You can request to be removed from mailing lists, but so far there's no easy opt-out when it comes to your information being distributed on the app. In the Broadcast Center, Tanaya Williamson, Cronkite News.
A t-shirt is much more than a piece of clothing for dozens of Arizona residents who are honoring survivors of violence. Cronkite News reporter Samantha Lomibao went to an event to help men, women, and children who are working to heal.
This big event where we hang up t-shirts that show support for domestic violence victims and as well as preventing violence in the first place.
The Clothesline Project at Arizona State University brings together victims and advocates who want to bring awareness to issues of violence. More than 2,000 t-shirts were displayed, with more to come.
And we invite anybody who's willing to decorate a shirt to come and decorate a shirt. We have markers and paints for them to decorate as well. And then we allow them to take a couple of clothespins and go and hang it up wherever they feel like they want to.
The organizer of the event, Alicia Dufree, said she was a victim of violence.
I'm a survivor of both sexual and domestic violence.
When Dufree was a sophomore at a college in Oregon, she was attacked on her way back from the grocery store.
I walked home through a neighborhood and I was assaulted on the way home.
Dufree escaped and was helped by a stranger who called the police.
The police came, they took a report, but there was no investigation and they just dropped me off at my dorm room. There was no resources, there wasn't anything provided. And I want to make sure that that experience doesn't happen to any ASU student or any student from here on out.
People came to the Tempe campus today to paint words of encouragement on t-shirts, then hanging the finished t-shirts on a fence with clothespins. Volunteers say it's a way to get people to talk about a subject some find uncomfortable.
I think that not enough conversation is happening about it, so I think being able to visualize people's thoughts on it is a really good conversation starter. So I think it's just important to get the conversation out there and get people to start thinking about it.
In Tempe, Samantha Lomibao, Cronkite News.
Anyone can come to the Tempe campus to paint a t-shirt through tomorrow.
As holiday gift-giving season approaches, more people are shopping online and having presents shipped to homes. That's giving thieves an opportunity to grab your gifts. But as reporter Gabriela Becerra explains, local police departments are working together to reward you for helping solve package theft.
It's more than just the inconvenience of replacing a package. It's a child's Christmas gift. It's a work product for somebody, or maybe someone saved all year for something and it has sentimental value.
And since 70% of U.S. homeowners expect to receive packages during the holiday season, according to Edelman Intelligence, that's a chance for those gifts to be Grinched. Silent Witness is rewarding people for turning in information that leads to an arrest.
If you see something out of the ordinary where you later find out a crime had been committed or turns out it's related to a crime and you give that information to Silent Witness, even if the charge turns out to be a misdemeanor crime, we're still going to pay out on that.
The amount rewarded depends on the severity of the crime. You can receive up to $1,000 for assisting with a felony arrest. Home security and even doorbell cameras can help catch the criminal's image, but police say there's an even simpler strategy.
We have to embrace the technology, but the critical piece of what we do that can't be replaced by any form of technology is getting to know your neighbors.
Officers suggest having trusted neighbors pick up packages or schedule deliveries while you're home to help prevent package theft.
So you can minimize the amount of time that package is sitting out in front of your
house.
Police say it will take more than just law enforcement to prevent package theft. It will take a community effort.
This program is not just us, it's all of us together.
In Phoenix, Gabriela Becerra, Cronkite News.
Reporting information to Silent Witness is not the same as making a police report. You can remain anonymous. Silent Witness shares the information you give with law enforcement to help detectives solve the crime.
Arizona is one of 2 states without a texting and driving law to restrict drivers from using their phones behind the wheel. But there are more than 15 jurisdictions in the state that have passed their own ordinances in an effort of curbing this behavior. Reporter Micah Bledsoe has more on what local officials want from the state.
But the truth is, it doesn't happen to you until it happens to you, and then it's too late.
Brendan Lyons, a former firefighter, saw accidents caused by distracted driving while on the job. In Arizona, more than 58,000 accidents in 2017 were related to a driver being distracted behind the wheel, according to a report by the Arizona Department of Transportation. He started Look, Save a Life in 2012 and began working with local officials to pressure state legislators to enact laws keeping people off their cell phones. 3 years later, Lyons was struck by a distracted driver while biking.
Not only did I have a 2-year rehabilitation from cognitive therapy, physical, occupational therapy, but it sent me in a new direction. I'm no longer going back. My neurosurgeons were saying, hey, Brendan, you're not going back to your career as a firefighter. So it sent me in a completely other direction.
He says laws to stop distracted driving are necessary to help curb this behavior. Senator Karen Fann worked on the bill passed in July targeting teens.
We want to make sure that we keep our roads safe without being too overbearing on a lot of the bureaucracies.
The law prohibits drivers younger than 18 from using wireless devices while holding their learner's permit and during the first 6 months of their provisional license as a secondary offense.
For teenagers only, I personally think it's the wrong message. Nobody should be texting while driving, but it is a start.
Rolly Simmons is the chairman of the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors. The county adopted a hands-free ban as a primary offense.
November 2nd, Yavapai will become the 3rd county in Arizona to propose and pass its own hands-free ordinance aimed at ending texting and driving.
We were waiting and wanting the state to do something that is their responsibility, not ours. But because of their failure to act, this board is going to take on the action.
Prescott City Mayor Greg Mingarelli says given the city's location within Yavapai County, they did something similar to make it easy for his region to understand just how serious the issue is.
We felt like this is dangerous enough out on the road that we need to make it a primary offense to really curb the behavior.
Senator Fann says it is a statewide concern that we have uniform and consistency across the state for residents and tourists in the next few years.
The thing you learn down here at the Capitol is you can't always throw a touchdown every time. Sometimes you have to just move that ball down the field. And this is one of those cases.
Until Arizona passes a statewide measure, Lyons says he will continue working with local jurisdictions to prevent more accidents.
That is not just because of wrong-way drivers. That is not just because of DUIs. There's a greater reason, and that great reason, 94% of all crashes is a direct result of human error.
In Yavapai County, Micah Bledsoe, Cronkite News.
The city of Prescott passed their hands-free ordinance at a meeting last week. Officials say more cities will likely continue to pass similar laws to encourage the state to adopt a law that creates consistency between cities.
180 children now have new families after a celebration of adoption this weekend. Cronkite News reporter Jennifer Alvarez shows us how these families came together through the help of volunteers.
National Adoption Day is celebrated the Saturday before Thanksgiving in hopes that a bigger at the dinner table. I found it inspiring to see children make it out of foster care and into. Down here, lots of fun and activities.
We see a lot of smiles.
And up there, another walk of relief when an adoption is finalized.
It's definitely life-changing.
There's happy kids and definitely happy new parents. But it wasn't always all smiles. Catherine and Caitlin Flushner had been trying to adopt for over 2 years.
It's been a long process, that's for sure. It's not just like
You know, they come into your home and they stay. Sometimes they go, and sometimes it works out, and we get to keep them forever.
For only one day each year, the halls of the Durango Juvenile Court are filled with happiness. Maricopa County celebrated National Adoption Day on Saturday, where 180 children were adopted. But other than the families, everyone here was a volunteer.
Over 200 volunteers.
But what about the judges? The lawyers?
All volunteers.
This is the Prescott Juggling Club's third year volunteering.
It's a 6-hour job total, so we're at 5.5 hours so far, so we're getting a little tired.
But even though they're a little tired,
oh, it's worth it. It's such an inspirational event. I just want to cry every year when I see how many happy kids there are that are being adopted.
some of those happy kids are now part of Catherine and Caitlin Fleschner's family. They'll get to keep these two forever.
There's a good smile, Missy.
And the one thing they're looking forward to the most,
starting our family.
Yep. Maybe taking a trip to Disneyland.
Yeah.
and their advice to those looking to adopt.
Going with it with your whole heart and just know that the kids really deserve that.
It is worth it.
It's great having these kids in your home and learning from them every single day.
Perhaps today, this mom will be learning some new dance moves from her daughter. This is the 19th year for Maricopa County National Adoption Day event. In the Broadcast Center, Jennifer Alvarez, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.